Perfect. So it's really nice to be here. Brian Campbell, my coworker, and I are here to talk to you about disclosure and job accommodations. It's a pretty heavy, complicated topic, and we've done the best we could to put together a presentation that's going to give you tips and advice and kind of food for thought. But if you do have questions about disclosure and accommodations, there's going to be a question and answer period after the presentation. But feel free to come up to either of us afterwards and pick our brains a little bit. I'm not going to talk about Partners for Workplace Inclusion Program, which happens to have the longest name ever. We do have a booth outside in the foyer, so feel free to slip by, pick up some information, talk to us, find out what we're all about. I guess I will talk briefly about it. We're an employment service here in Saskatoon for people with disabilities. So once you're kind of winding up your education, or maybe you've just completed your degree, put some thought into coming to our program. We basically support work seekers in any aspect that you need support in. So if you need to work on interview skills, we can do those mock interviews with you. Take a quick peek at your resume, get it up to snuff, help you with workplace accommodations, all that type of thing. So feel free to swing by our booth, but I will get to the meat of the presentation. Let's see how this goes. Oh, perfect. Aha. Yes, and we're in business. So telling prospective employers about your disability may be the biggest uncertainty in your work search. It's a very personal choice. You have to decide what's best for you. So whether you mention it in your cover letter, resume, or during the interview at the time of the job offer depends on you and your individual situation. What's right for one person might not be right for another, and what works for one employer may not be successful with another. If you're dealing with an employment agency, such as Partners for Workplace Inclusion Program, that specifically works with persons with disabilities, you still have say in whether you want to disclose your disability or not in your work search. Disclosure is an important and complex decision that is entirely your choice. So before deciding if, when, and how to disclose your disability, think about and discuss the following questions. So these are really good questions to think about. Is your disability visible? How do most people react when they learn about your disability? How do you deal with their reactions? When do you feel most comfortable and confident disclosing your disability? Are there any safety reasons, personal or organizational, that would affect your decision to disclose? How will your employer react to your disclosure? Will they think you're dishonest? How will you deal with their reaction? What misconceptions might the employer have about your disability? If you disclose, will you be able to reassure your employer that your disability will not affect your ability to do the work? Do you need accommodations for your interview? Or if you get the job? What do you know about this employer's policies and experiences regarding people with disabilities? A significant number of people in the workforce have an invisible disability. Although many disabilities may not affect job performance, the onset or reoccurrence of some disabilities may affect a person's abilities to function on the job. So when you have an invisible or non-visible disability, you're living with a chronic condition that can't be seen. The list of invisible disabilities is long, including fibromyalgia, migraines, learning disabilities, Crohn's disease, epilepsy, chemical sensitivities, psychiatric disabilities, heart disease, developmental disabilities, brain injuries, and many others. If you have an invisible disability, you may be concerned that your condition might make it harder for you to find or succeed at a job. Many people have misperceptions about people with disabilities, and some employers may not consider hiring you if they know about your disability. So one of the most challenging aspects of dealing with an invisible disability may be deciding if, when, and how you should disclose to a potential employer. So unless your invisible disability could put you or someone else at risk on the job, telling a potential employer about it is a matter of personal choice, like I said. If safety is an issue, though, you'll need to disclose your disability at an appropriate time for safety reasons. So ask yourself the following questions when you make the decision whether or not to disclose to a potential employer your invisible disability. So, will disclosure help or hurt your chances of getting or keeping work? How will the employer react? What are the misperceptions about your disability? And how will you address them if you disclose? If your disability is under control, is there a reason to disclose? Do your coping strategies allow you to meet the job requirements? If you know you are unable to perform some of the duties in the job description because of your disability, would disclosure help the employer to modify the job to fit your abilities? Would you consider work alternatives such as part-time work or maybe job sharing? So before you make the decision about disclosing your disability, think about these points. So from an employer's point of view, not disclosing your disability means that you don't need accommodations. And important, you can never undisclose, but you can always disclose at a later time. So you don't need to feel the need to disclose right away. So in Saskatchewan, getting a little ahead here. So in Saskatchewan, human rights legislation governs the way an employer may approach issues about disabilities. So Saskatchewan employers may not ask about your present or past mental or physical conditions, whether they're invisible or not, in an interview or on a job application. Employers should clearly state the requirements of the position in a job description or advertisement. This allows you to determine whether your disability would prevent you from functioning effectively on the job. And employers can ask you to pass a medical exam or other tests related to the job's requirements once you've been hired. So if you decide to disclose your disability in a job interview, here are some suggestions. So mention your disability when the interviewer says, "So tell me about yourself." Talk about your disability briefly, clearly, and without being defensive. Tell the employer about any job accommodations or coping strategies you've developed as a result of your disability to reinforce the proactive steps you've taken. And be concise. Say something like, "For the last 3 years, I've been dealing with a medical issue, but it's under control now and I'm ready to work." Legally, the interviewer can only ask questions about your disability that relate directly to the requirements of the job. And be prepared to explain any gaps an interviewer might spot in your resume, even if you decide not to talk about your disability. And stay positive. Return the focus to the skills, experience, and enthusiasm you'll bring to the position and what you can do for the organization. Emphasize your coping strategies. If your disability could be a safety concern for yourself or others, discuss it with the employer after the job offer has been made so you and your employer can take appropriate steps to avoid any possible risks. So, for example, if you have epilepsy and there's a chance that you could have a seizure, your employer can ensure a coworker with first aid qualifications is available to help you if necessary. And if your invisible disability poses no safety concern, you may decide to discuss it once you've been given a written job offer or if you're required to pass a medical exam, since your disability will probably come to light at that time. If you think your immediate supervisor would be supportive, go ahead and disclose to him or her, or disclosing to human resources is another possibility. Now, if you choose to accept the job offer without disclosing an invisible disability, it's important to get a letter from your doctor stating that at the time of employment you were deemed fit to work, and just keep this letter for your records. So that's a good idea to do. So, disclosing on the job. So you might need to disclose if... Getting a little ahead here. Don't want to let you see the next slide. It's a secret. So disclosing on the job. So you might need to disclose if you need accommodations or time off for medical appointments or recovery. So as you prepare to discuss your disability, remember that anyone can develop a disability, invisible or not, at any time. You haven't been dishonest if you didn't disclose your disability. So you were able to work because your disability was under control. This is why a note from your doctor, dated from the time your employment, is essential. So don't overlook the skills you've developed as a result of living with your disability, such as creative problem solving, flexibility, and determination. By using effective career planning and job search techniques, you'll be able to assess your skills and connect with an employer who recognizes what you have to offer. So I'm going to call Brian, my partner in crime, up, and he will continue the presentation from here. Maybe.
Good morning. Just before we leave off talking about disclosure, I want to spend a little bit of time looking at the balance between the risks and the risks of disclosing and the possible benefits of disclosing or not disclosing. some of the risks, or one of the risks might be you may not be hired, which is certainly a reality out there even these days. However, the employer may be recruiting for diversity, so there's that benefit in disclosing. You may be labeled on the job site, but the employer may also value your openness when you do disclose. You may be giving up your privacy when you disclose, but the employer can provide accommodations should you decide to disclose. You may face discrimination, either subtle or direct, should you decide to disclose, but your abilities, attitudes, and success may counteract any discrimination. And also, it's important to realize that in disclosing, you may become an ambassador for both yourself and for other people with disabilities on the job. You may face the envy or resentment of coworkers for receiving special treatment when you disclose, but your openness can also create understanding among your coworkers. And also, should you decide not to disclose, it's important to realize that you may face the anger of an employer who finds out about your disability and later feels that they've been misled. Your openness and your cooperation may create a win-win situation that both you and the employer get what you need. A few tips on disclosing. Be positive, focus on your skills and the qualifications, and don't present your disability as a weakness. Be prepared to address any concerns employers express, even if they are not expressed directly. Again, going back to what Jenny had been talking about earlier, when you're given the opportunity in an interview, for instance, to talk about yourself, use that opportunity, if the subject has not come up already, to talk to the employer about your disability. Know what workplace accommodations you may require, including their availability, cost, what funding programs are available that the employer or yourself may be able to access. And anticipate the employer's reaction to and possible questions about your disclosure, and know how you will answer those questions. Be prepared to use some examples. I'm going to talk just briefly about some points regarding accommodations. Many businesses and organizations are exploring alternative working relationships and accommodations to meet the needs of all of their workers. Accommodating the needs of persons with disabilities is really no different. Workplace trends can often benefit workers with disabilities. Increased demands on productivity and effectiveness are leading to new technologies. Working at home or from satellite offices is becoming more common. Tasks are being assigned on a temporary or permanent basis based on skills, interests, and abilities. And workplaces are introducing large computer monitors, improving lighting, and providing ergonomic chairs and workstations to reduce physical strain. Most accommodations are easy to introduce and cost relatively little. While some government funding is available, most employers consulted state that costs are minimal and the majority choose not to pursue funding. The workplace accommodations that individuals with disabilities might need can take many forms. Simply making the workplace facilities accessible, modifying work schedules, restructuring work, acquiring or modifying equipment, software or devices, providing support services or qualified assistance, changing work locations, retraining or reassigning of employees. Just a few hints in terms of some things to keep in mind about accommodations. As an individual with a disability, you may already have some experience with accommodations in the workplace. Some additional strategies for job seekers might include taking care of your own needs, if possible by providing the equipment or the technology. This eliminates a potential stumbling block to employers who are considering your application. Be open, honest, and clear. Explain what your specific needs are. Don't expect the employer or co-workers to anticipate them. Know how much it costs to provide physical accommodations you need and where they can be purchased. Know what funding is available for accommodations and let your potential employer know about it and how to access it. Offer solutions, not just what you can or cannot do.